My name is Renee Langston. I'm 33, and for most of my adult life, I've been what my family calls the reliable one. That used to sound like a compliment. Until the day I realized it was code for the one we can keep taking from without ever saying thank you. It happened at my Aunt Sheila's backyard barbecue, the kind of family gathering where the smoke hangs in the air like nostalgia and every laugh carries a hidden judgment. I arrived right on time, holding a pitcher of sweet tea and a homemade pasta salad, because that's what I do. I show up prepared, considerate, invisible. As I stepped through the gate, Aunt Sheila froze mid-laugh, her eyebrows lifted in polite surprise. "Oh, Renee, we didn't realize you were still invited." Still, invited. Two words that sliced cleaner than any knife. My cousin Darren chuckled from the drinks table. "There wasn't a plate set for you, but hey, grab a soda, I guess." He didn't even meet my eyes. Just turned back to joke with his girlfriend like I'd wandered into someone else's family reunion. There were 3 tables piled with food: fried chicken, potato salad, ribs glistening in the sun, and not a single plate with my name, not even a spot, even a. I smiled tightly, swallowing the sting in my throat. "No worries," I said. My voice didn't crack, but it wanted to. I set my soda down beside the unopened mustard bottle and stood beneath the oak tree at the edge of the yard, half in sunlight, half in shade, watching them laugh. The tremor in my fingers, the heat crawling up my neck, the sting right behind my eyes, every familiar sign of humiliation dressed as hospitality. Aunt Sheila waved her tongs like a flag of pretend innocence. "We just didn't expect you, honey. Thought maybe you were working." Working, always that word. It's how they justify forgetting me. "She's probably busy. She works too much. She doesn't mind." Never mind that I was the one who reserved the park shelter for last month's 4th of July. Never mind that I'd sent my dad $50 just last week when he said his pension check was delayed. Never mind that I was the one paying for the propane keeping that grill alive. I looked at the flames dancing over the ribs and thought, "You're welcome." No one said a thing when I finally walked away. No, wait, no, come sit. Just laughter fading behind me. That night, back in my small apartment, I sat on my couch, scrolling through my phone. My thumb hovered over the icon for the propane management app, the one I'd been using for years to pay for my family's shared supply. They were all still on my account. Aunt Sheila's house, the tank in her backyard, the one I refilled every month without fail. I stared at the numbers. $59.74 a month, 2 years of automatic payments, over $1,400 in total, and not once had anyone offered to pitch in. I let out a quiet laugh, though nothing was funny. Then, with one small tap, I paused the service. A simple toggle, no fireworks, no dramatic music, just silence. Until the next morning. By 8:42 a.m., my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. The family group chat. "Grill won't turn on. No gas." Did anyone forget to refill? What's happening? I typed back 2 words. Adjusted for attendance. No emoji, no explanation, just math. For a while, I thought that would be it. My quiet revenge, a poetic little boundary, whispered through an app. But at 9:15, I heard the rumble of a truck outside my apartment. Dad's old Ford. Windows down, earth, wind, and fire blaring, like it was the 80s again. I opened my blinds, and there he was, rolling a full propane tank out of the bed of his truck like a man on a mission. He didn't look angry. He looked set on fixing things, like always. But Dad doesn't fix. He patches. He smooths things over, makes everyone laugh, pretends no one's bleeding. I leaned on the window frame, watching him drive off toward Aunt Sheila's, the same way he's always driven, straight into someone else's mess, never once asking how it started. By the time I showed up at the barbecue later that day, the yard had gone quiet. The ribs were still raw, the soda was warm. Everyone was standing around the dead grill like mourners at a funeral. Aunt Sheila spotted me first. "Oh, you came back." Her voice was a little too high, too nervous. I shrugged. "Just checking in." Dad stood beside the new tank, connecting hoses. When he looked up, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Problem solved," he said, giving the tank a pat. Then, more quietly, "Ain't you going to help me hook this up?" I didn't move. "I think you've got it handled, Dad." Something flickered behind his eyes. Confusion, maybe pride wounded. "Don't make this a thing, Renee," he muttered. "A thing?" My voice came out calm, but it had weight. "It already is one." The air went still. Darren shifted behind the cooler. Aunt Sheila's husband coughed. And for the first time, I saw something new on their faces. Not arrogance, not dismissal. Recognition. They knew I knew. I could have shouted. I could have thrown every unpaid favor, every forgotten thank you in their faces. But instead, I smiled. The kind that says, "You'll figure it out soon enough." I walked back toward my truck, feeling the hot gravel bite beneath my sandals. Behind me, the laughter didn't start again. And for the first time in years, that silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. Because they didn't just forget to set a plate, they forgot who'd been feeding them all along. Next time, they wouldn't forget. Not after what was coming. People say family is about love. In mine end, it's about maintenance. Both the emotional kind and the HVAC kind. I've worked in heating and air systems for nearly a decade now. Certified, dependable, always on call. Summers in Georgia? Brutal. Winters? Worse. I keep people comfortable. And somehow, that became my unofficial role at home too. It started small. 2 years ago, Aunt Sheila called me after her propane tank ran dry before a cookout. "Sweetheart, you're good with those apps and gadgets," she said. "Can you help us set something up? Maybe add us to whatever you use?" I did. And when the first automatic payment came through, I didn't think twice. $60 a month wasn't much. Back then, I thought helping meant belonging. That one favor multiplied faster than interest. "Renee, can you add us to your Netflix? You already pay for the family plan, right? Hey, the Wi-Fi's weak in the back room. You mind getting one of those extender things? You can expense it later." Then Darren, my cousin with the endless excuses, asked if he could temporarily add his car insurance to my card. A month turned into 6. Every favor blurred into another line on my credit card bill. Every thank you came with a just one more thing. It wasn't just money, though. It was time, labor, the quiet kind of emotional servitude people never notice they're demanding. "Can you pick up Nana's meds on the way home?" "Our AC's rattling again. Can you swing by after work?" "My friend's boyfriend needs help with a smart thermostat. Told him you'd do it cheap." And every time I said yes, because that's what they raised me to do. Family first, no matter what. Except that always meant Renee last. There's a special kind of fatigue that doesn't show up in your body, only in your soul. The kind that comes from being everyone's solution, but nobody's priority. It was last December when I finally started to notice the cracks. Aunt Sheila called, panic in her voice. "The heat's out, Renee. The kids are freezing. Can you please come?" I dropped everything, literally left a job site mid-service, and drove half an hour in the rain. Spent my evening replacing the furnace igniter for free. By the time I finished, it was past 9. No dinner, no thanks, just exhaustion. The next morning, I opened my phone and froze. Darren had posted on Instagram, "Family Christmas party, matching pajamas, cocoa mugs, presents stacked to the ceiling." And there, standing proudly in front of the fireplace I'd just fixed, was my entire family. Everyone, except me. I stared at that post so long the screen dimmed itself. When I confronted Aunt Sheila later, she just laughed it off. "Oh, Renee, we thought you were working. You always say how busy you are." Busy. There it was again. The word they used to erase me. Busy, tired, reliable. Words that sound like virtues until you realize they're just convenient excuses not to care. That night, I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles. I should have been angry, but what I felt was heavier. Tired. Bone-deep tired. That's when the quiet resentment started to grow. Not the loud, explosive kind. The quiet, cold kind that makes you start observing your life from a distance. Every transaction, every unspoken assumption, every time I filled a gap no one else wanted to touch, I started keeping track. Not in a notebook, but in my head, like emotional bookkeeping. I was the cousin with the good job, the fallback, the one they'd joke about. "Oh, Renee will handle it. She always does." And somehow, that became my whole identity. No one asked how I was doing when I missed 2 barbecues last year because of my sprained ankle. No one texted when I went silent for weeks recovering at home. But the propane refill? That never went unnoticed. Then came the barbecue invite this summer. A casual text in the family group chat. "BBQ Sunday. Everyone welcome. Let us know if you're coming." It looked harmless, generic, like any other invitation. But I noticed something. I wasn't tagged. That's when I decided. No more quiet generosity. No more buying my way into belonging. I wasn't going to announce it. No speeches, no warnings. Just action. So when I showed up that day and Aunt Sheila smiled that fake surprise smile, I already knew what would follow. And when I walked away under that oak tree, half burned by sunlight, I already had a plan forming. The propane app wasn't just about gas, it was control, the one thing I'd never had in this family. When I toggled that switch off, I didn't just stop the grill, I stopped the pattern. They'd never noticed my effort when it was keeping the fire going, but they'd sure as hell notice when it went out. The next day, I watched the messages roll in with a kind of eerie calm. No anger, no guilt, just clarity, like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Grill won't turn on. No gas. What's happening? And me, just typing those 2 words, adjusted for attendance. I hadn't expected Dad to get involved, but of course he did. Dad always plays mediator, swooping in with that tone of tired authority, pretending neutrality while quietly choosing sides. When I saw his truck pull up later that morning, tank in the back, music blasting, I almost laughed. That's Dad for you. He'll drive across town to replace a propane tank, but never once ask why it ran out. He called it fixing the problem. I called it avoiding the truth. And as the engine noise faded into the distance, something in me shifted. This wasn't about a grill anymore. It was about recognition, about finally being seen. And when I saw his truck parked outside Aunt Sheila's house later that afternoon, I knew what I had to do. Not to argue, not to fight, but to watch what happened when the provider stopped providing. The silence that followed was the kind you could feel on your skin. Thick, awkward, almost electric. I'd never heard my family so quiet before, and deep down, a calm voice whispered, "Good, now they can finally hear what silence sounds like when I'm not filling it." By the time I pulled into Aunt Sheila's driveway that afternoon, the laughter had vanished. The kind of silence that usually follows bad news hung in the air. No sizzling from the grill, no music, just the low hum of embarrassment. Everyone was standing around the patio, staring at the cold metal lid like it had personally betrayed them. Darren's girlfriend was pretending to scroll on her phone, but even from a distance I could see her thumb wasn't moving. Dad spotted me first. His face softened, then tensed again, like he couldn't decide whether to smile or scold. "Renee," he called, "come help me hook this thing up." He was rolling out a new propane tank from his truck, his big, self-righteous solution to the crisis. Aunt Sheila hovered beside him, nervously smoothing her apron. I leaned against my truck and folded my arms. "You've got it handled, Dad." He frowned. "Don't make this a thing, honey." His tone had that familiar mix, part command, part guilt. I took a step closer. "A thing? Dad, you drove a full tank across town without asking why the old one stopped working." Darren laughed under his breath. "You really paused the gas over a plate, Renee?" The smirk on his face, that casual, mocking smirk, flipped a switch inside me. "You think this is about a plate?" I said quietly. The way the word quietly hit the air made everyone go still. I took a slow breath, feeling every ounce of heat, humiliation, and exhaustion settle into something sharper. I paid for this gas every month for 2 years. Never once did anyone offer to help or even say thank you. And now I'm dramatic because I stopped? Aunt Sheila stiffened. "Now, Renee, that's not fair. You never said—" "Oh, I never said?" I cut her off, my voice still calm. "You never asked, because you liked not having to." Darren's smirk faded. His girlfriend looked down. Dad sighed, that long exhale that means, here she goes again. "It's not about money, Renee," he said. "It's about showing up. Family showing up." I stared at him. "Then where were you when I couldn't walk for 6 weeks last year? When I missed work? When I had to sell my tools to pay rent? Nobody showed up then. Not a text, not a visit, just silence." The quiet that followed was brutal. Even the cicadas seemed to pause. Darren cleared his throat, trying to break it. "You're really going to ruin a cookout over this?" I turned to him. "You mean the cookout I funded?" He laughed weakly. "It's just gas." "It's never just gas," I said, stepping closer. "It's Netflix. It's Wi-Fi. It's your car insurance that I paid for 6 months straight because you said you were short. And then you bought Yeezys the same week." "I was going to pay you back," he blurted. I nodded. "You always say that, but somehow I'm always the only one keeping receipts." Aunt Sheila's husband finally muttered, "Now let's not turn this into—" But Aunt Sheila's voice cracked through his. "Renee, we love you. You know that." I laughed, soft, bitter, disbelieving. "Love? You mean that word you pull out when you're caught taking too much? You love me as long as I'm useful." Dad's jaw tightened. "You're talking out of anger right now." "No," I said. "I'm talking out of exhaustion." I reached into my tote bag and pulled out an envelope. The final propane statement. I paid it off, I said. And I closed the account. A gasp rippled through the group. You did what? Aunt Sheila whispered. I shut it down, I repeated. No more autopay, no more bills, no more invisible sponsorships. Dad shook his head slowly. So you're walking away from family over a few dollars? I met his eyes. No, I'm walking away from being everyone's safety net while being treated like an afterthought. No one spoke. Darren opened his mouth, then closed it again. I placed the envelope on the table, right beside the unopened mustard bottle I'd left there earlier. Consider that the last refill I'll ever cover. Then I turned, walking toward my truck. My sandals crunched the gravel like punctuation marks. Behind me, I heard Aunt Sheila murmur something like, "She'll come around." And Dad replying, "She always does." But this time they were wrong. I didn't come around. I drove home, windows down, air thick with the smell of summer and smoke that never got the chance to rise. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt done. Done carrying the weight of everyone's comfort. Done fixing what they kept breaking. Done confusing usefulness with love. That night, as I sat in my quiet apartment, my phone started buzzing again. So you're really cutting us off? Renee, be reasonable. You're acting childish. I didn't respond, because they didn't need another explanation. They needed consequences. And for once, I wasn't the one supplying the heat. The next morning, I woke up to something unfamiliar. Silence. No buzzing notifications. No group chat chaos. No one asking for a small favor. Just the low hum of my air conditioner. Steady, dependable, mine. For years, I'd mistaken noise for connection. Now, the quiet felt like breathing after years underwater. Still, a part of me kept checking my phone out of habit. Old instincts die slow. It was 10 a.m. before the first call came in. Dad, then Aunt Sheila, then Darren. I let them all ring out. Each missed call felt like another layer of peace settling over my chest. By day 3, the silence had changed shape. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was strange. Like walking into a house you used to live in. Familiar walls, unfamiliar air. I'd been everyone's first call for so long that the absence of need felt almost like rejection. Then I remembered. This is what I asked for. Freedom doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. That Friday evening, I sat on my tiny balcony with a glass of iced tea, watching the sun slip behind the buildings. That's when my phone buzzed again. Not a call this time, just a message. Nana, I miss you, sweetheart. How are you? My throat tightened. Nana was the only one who ever said thank you without following it with, "Can you also?" I replied, "I'm okay, just resting." 10 minutes later, she sent, "Good. You deserve rest. Don't let them make you feel bad for taking it." That was the first message that made me cry. 2 weeks passed before Dad came by. He didn't call first, just showed up, knocking like it was still his right to. When I opened the door, he was standing there holding something heavy. A propane tank, full. He set it down gently beside my welcome mat. A note was taped to the side, in his handwriting. "Didn't realize how much you did. I do now. Dad." No lecture, no guilt, no excuses, just that. He didn't stay. Didn't ask to come in, just tipped his head, walked back to his truck, and drove off. I stood there for a while, staring at that tank. Then I rolled it to the corner of my porch. Forgiveness, I realized, doesn't mean restarting what broke you. It just means you're done letting it control the temperature of your peace. Later that weekend, Jordan came over. We've been seeing each other for a while. Quiet, steady kind of man. He's the opposite of my family. He listens, doesn't try to fix me. He brought burgers, a small grill, and a pack of matches. We set up on the patio, the scent of smoke curling into the air. "You've been paying for their barbecues for years," he said, flipping a patty. "This one's finally yours." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. The kind that comes from somewhere deep, like shaking off dust. "I forgot what that felt like," I said. He smiled. Peace has a funny way of feeling unfamiliar at first. That night, after he left, I sat on the couch journaling. I used to write down receipts. Who owed what? Who didn't pay back? Now I wrote questions. Why did I think giving enough would make them love me? Why did I think being reliable was the same as being respected? Why did I keep believing my usefulness bought me belonging? The answers came slowly, like air leaking from a balloon, because I was raised to earn affection instead of receive it. And I was finally tired of the transaction. Days turned into weeks. The calls slowed, then stopped. Aunt Sheila's number disappeared from my recent list. Darren unfollowed me. Apparently setting boundaries was toxic behavior. But Nana still called every Sunday. We had breakfast together once a week. No errands, no talk of anyone else, just stories, even the ones I'd heard 1,000 times. And every time she ended a call with, "Proud of you, sweetheart," I felt something heal. Then one afternoon, as I walked up to my porch, I saw it. The propane tank Dad had left weeks ago, still full, untouched. The note weathered but legible. I smiled faintly. I didn't need the gas. I had my own flame now. Later that evening, a text from Darren popped up. "You done punishing us yet?" I stared at it for a long time before replying. "No, Darren. I'm done repeating what doesn't work." Then I turned off my phone, took my journal, and walked outside. The sky was deep orange, and the world was finally, blissfully still. Sometimes peace isn't found in forgiveness or apology. Sometimes it's found in the space where you stop explaining yourself. I exhaled. For the first time in years, I wasn't anyone's safety net, and it felt beautiful. It's been 3 months since the barbecue. 3 months since I hit pause on a lifetime of being everyone's background support system. The grass in Aunt Sheila's yard has probably grown back by now. The family group chat's been quiet long enough that I almost forgot it existed. Almost. The silence still feels strange sometimes, like I'm waiting for an alarm that never goes off. But in that stillness, something new grew. Peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on other people's moods. The real kind. The kind that can stand on its own 2 feet. I threw myself into work again, but this time it wasn't about distraction. It was about building something that actually belonged to me. A clean energy contractor reached out on LinkedIn, said he'd heard I handle clean installs with precision. That one message turned into my biggest client yet, a 6-figure contract that had my name, and only my name, on it. While they were arguing about who'd refill a propane tank, I was wiring up entire systems that could power a small town. It was ironic, really. They called me dramatic for shutting off a grill, but that one quiet act lit up the rest of my life. Jordan's been steady through all of it. He never tells me what to do. He just shows up with takeout, small smiles, and enough patience to fill the spaces my family left empty. One evening, we were sitting on my back patio with my small grill burning softly between us. He handed me a burger, warm and dripping juice, and said, "You ever notice how quiet your phone's been lately?" I grinned. Peace and quiet. Turns out they're the same thing. He laughed. "You sure you're not lonely?" I looked up at the sky where the stars were sharp enough to make a wish on. "Not lonely," I said. "Just selective." A few days later, I drove out to see Nana. Her porch smelled like jasmine and old coffee. She hugged me so tightly I could feel her heart beating through her sweater. "I saw the look on your face last time," she said softly. "You finally learned how to let go." I nodded. "I'm trying to, Nana." She smiled. "Letting go isn't losing, sweetheart. It's just making room for what's real." That night, I helped her fix her radio. Wiring loose, small job. She handed me an envelope before I left. Inside was a handwritten note. "Don't forget, you were always enough before you were useful." It's still tucked inside my journal. A few weeks later, I was out hiking on a trail Jordan told me about, a bluff overlooking a lake 30 minutes from town. No benches, no signs, just rocks, wind, and stillness. I climbed to the top and stood there, letting the breeze hit my face. The last light of the day scattered across the water like tiny sparks. And in that quiet, a thought settled into me like truth. This moment, was mine. Not borrowed, not shared, not paid for, just mine. I used to think love meant sacrifice. That being the one who gave the most would make me irreplaceable. But I've learned something better. People who only value you for what you give will never see you as whole. They'll see you as a service. And I'm not a service, I'm a person. Sometimes I still think about that day at the barbecue, the look on their faces when the grill wouldn't start, when the silence hit harder than any argument. Back then, it felt like the end of something. Now I see it for what it really was. The beginning. The beginning of boundaries, of choosing myself, of not being the automatic yes. I don't hate them. I just finally understand them. And more importantly, I understand me. There's a new table now. Small, quiet, but full. Nana, Jordan, a few close friends, and even a rescued dog with one floppy ear and a bark that sounds like thunder. We eat, laugh, and every single person at that table says, "Thank you." Not because they have to, because they mean it. As the evening light fades and everyone starts cleaning up, Jordan reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. "You happy?" he asks. I nod. "Happier than I've ever been." He smiles. Good, you earned it. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I've let go. The guilt, the exhaustion, the endless giving, gone. Because peace doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being respected. I glance toward the small grill flickering softly beside us, and I can't help but smile. I used to think my worth was tied to keeping everyone else's fire burning. Now I know better. I'm not your gas tank. I'm not your silent support system. I'm a whole person, and I finally choose where my energy goes.